All right. Good morning. It's great to see you all, and congratulations for making it through the World Bank security system. And I think all of you have seen the program. It's a wonderful program, and we look forward to the next couple of days. So without much, so I've been asked to make a couple of announcements. So first of all, we are going to do something that we don't often do, which is we're going to do a little contest to recognize some of the best research presented at the conference. Outside the room, there's a little ballot box, and at the back of your program, there's a ballot. There's more ballots also outside. You can vote as many times as possible, so as many times as you want, so it's on the honor system. Please don't vote for yourself more than once. And there's 3 categories: best presentation, most impactful research, and best paper overall. And we'll be accepting the voting ballots until 4 p.m. on Tuesday, and we'll announce the winner during the closing session. Also, social media, we ask you to join the conversation using hashtag Ggkp and hashtag sustainable infrastructure. So we can retweet and share the conference discussion with those who are not able to attend. And finally, let me now turn to our first speaker, Laura Tuck, who's the Vice President for Sustainable Development at the World Bank and who's been a great champion of sustainable infrastructure, who's going to give us some opening remarks. Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Marianne. I don't think I'm in the running for best or most impactful speech, but I will just wanted to welcome you and give a few sort of framing remarks. Most of you probably are aware of them, but just to kick off what I understand is going to be a pretty incredible round of speakers. So I'm guessing if you're in this room and you care about sustainable infrastructure that you know the basic statistics, but just to set it out, we know that the needs are huge. And so the numbers we've been using have actually changed slightly as we move from targets related to MDGs to targets related to SDGs. And so we were saying 1.1 billion still lack electricity, 2.1 billion lack access to what we now call safely managed drinking water, which is the SDG target. 4.5 billion lack access to safely managed sanitation, same on that. And then 1 billion people still live more than 2 kilometers from an all-weather road. So if you just take a few of the basics, you know the numbers for our client countries are huge. And access to both having access and access to more reliable infrastructure we need for pretty much development in every single sector that we work in, whether we're increasing health and education services or getting people to their jobs or increasing firm productivity or reducing emissions or increasing resilience. I mean, all this takes new investment. And we all know it's pretty much given now that the poor are the ones who are hurt the most when infrastructure is underfunded. So what do? We need to finance it. We need to do more. We need to do better. And that takes a lot of money. And it would be a lot more than what is being spent today. We know right now that the public sector does most of the funding. Governments in developing countries spend about $1.5 trillion every year, public funds from the fiscal accounts. But those are limited, of course, and so are donor funds. Increasingly, we've seen constraints on ODA, especially with administrations like down the street and so forth. So these pots are getting squeezed. And so the obvious solution, as we try to think coming out of the Addis Ababa Financing for Development Agenda, et cetera, is, well, so what do? So we're going to turn to other sources of funds. And the logic is to look toward the private sector for finance. Right now, we don't really have good data on how much of infrastructure is financed by the private sector. Most experts sort of give estimates around 20% of the total, which is split between PPPs, public-private partnerships, and private financing to public providers like state-owned enterprises and public utilities. So it's not huge, but the potential is certainly there for us to think about how we can use it to play a more significant role in financing the future. But a lot of our clients don't have the information, the analytics, the tools, or the policy environment to really bring in the kind of private finance that it would take to start to try to bridge this gap. So what we've been doing here at the World Bank, we've been trying, and with other MDBs, of course, is we've been just trying to think what would it take to try to bring in a significantly, the famous billions to trillions. How would we really up the game to get more and to help governments bring in the private finance, but also to really improve the way they spend their own public finance, because we know that there's huge opportunities to increase the efficiency and get a lot more bang for their buck. So we launched something earlier this year called Maximizing Finance for Development, or MFD, speaking of acronyms a few minutes ago. So that's our new acronym. And so we're using this sort of cascade approach to help think about how we can bring in the private sector when they can provide value for money, when they can meet environmental and social and fiscal responsibility standards and save the scarce, whether it's public fiscal money or ODA public donor money, how we can use that the most judiciously as possible, and then bring in these kind of financings that meet these other standards. So we don't want infrastructure at any cost. These standards are important. And so we want it to be sustainable. It's the title. And that has lots of different meanings for us. Of course, we have economic considerations like who's going to pay for the service? How do we assure affordable access? How will the funding come over time so that it can last? How do we ensure that the development benefits of the infrastructure is shared, so socially sustainable and inclusive? How do we make sure that it doesn't deplete the natural capital that provides the resources and the environmental services that we need to sustain for livelihoods? And then, of course, the big topic on climate. As our understanding of what's happening on the climate evolves, as climate policies evolve, we really need to be changing the way we think about these investments to be sure they're both as low carbon as possible, as in close to zero carbon, and then resilient. And all the talk recently after the hurricanes and so forth is really getting us to think about what do we mean when we say resilient? How do we make these decisions? How do we think about bringing in considerations related to these issues and the uncertainties that they bring, and how do we think about judging those uncertainties if temperatures are going to change, rainfall, sea level policy, et cetera, and make good decisions in that kind of context. So we have lots of questions like I hope you're going to talk about during this conference. How do we define and measure sustainability? When trade-offs exist, how do we balance the social, the environmental, and the economic aspects of that sustainability? And I know that these issues have been addressed by many of you probably in this room by different academic disciplines. And some sort of cross-disciplinary, interdisciplinary thinking has gone on. But we still find that most of the researchers working on these topics are not systematically interacting with each other. Everyone takes their own cut, their own perspective, and doing really interesting stuff, pushing the envelope, but it doesn't really come together. And sustainability is really about, when you invest in one thing, thinking about how to bring these other important issues to the fore. So this year, we have the pleasure of hosting all of you. I'm really glad to see so many fantastic people in the audience, the Green Growth Knowledge Platform Annual Conference. And we have focused it on this particular topic of sustainable infrastructure. And we hope that this is going to support the interaction between all of you, between researchers and practitioners, to take advantage of some of the recent advances and challenges around this agenda. So over the course of these 2 days, you've probably had a chance to glance through the program. It looks fantastic. You're going to hear from over 80 speakers. It's a lot of people, a lot of listening, who are going to look at some really critical questions for this agenda. How to design, promote, and implement sustainable infrastructure. We're going to hear from experts on structural transformation in transport, successes, challenges, and lessons for development in the energy sector, mitigation and long-term decision-making, health impacts and adaptation benefits of water infrastructure, opportunities for scaling up nature-based solutions, financing for green investments, and you can glance through the agenda, but I think it's going to be fascinating. So I'm glad to see each of you here. I'm glad that there's so much diversity in the audience. We have a lot of the Ggkp partner organizations here. And I think that when you leave, I hope you'll have more knowledge, and I hope you'll be inspired to keep thinking about sustainability in this interdisciplinary way, and to really help our clients think about it and have solutions that will have a more sustainable future. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And now I would like my partners in the Green Growth Knowledge Platform say a few words of welcome. Kumi, do you want to start from the OECD?
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to if I'm not wrong, it's the 5th annual conference of the Ggkp Green Growth Knowledge Platform. Well, I think most of you in the room know what Ggkp is, but just to recap, in case you may not be familiar, it's a joint project that the OECD, the World Bank, GGGI, the Global Green Growth Institute, and United Nations Environment Programme launched back in 2012 to make sure that we are well coordinated in our messaging on green economy and green growth. And if you might remember, that was the year when we had the Rio Plus 20 back in 2012. So that was a catalytic year to make sure that we were on the same page. And it's so important to make sure when we are communicating these big international organizations, but now today joined by more than 50 knowledge partners, that we are singing from not only from the same songbook. We might debate different approaches and viewpoints, but it's important that we are taking this very collaborative approach to push the knowledge frontier on different aspects of green growth. And today we are focusing on sustainable infrastructure. For the perspective of the OECD, now we heard from Laura about the massive financing needs for developing countries, but also for OECD countries. Many of these countries have this heritage of aging infrastructure, very often network infrastructure that have to be replaced or maintained or upgraded, and that's also quite massive in terms of financing needs. So we all share common challenges in that sense. And we are also, at the OECD, we don't help or finance projects per se. We are not a financing organization, but we bring together different policymakers from different ministries, not only of OECD countries, but partner countries, to develop policy guidelines, policy standards that might help all countries move forward in the green, low-carbon direction. So I just stop here, and I'm looking very much forward to listening to many of you in the very varied sessions that we have today and tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Kumi. Orestes, GGGI.
Thank you very much, Marianne, and Laura and Kumi as well. And thank you to the World Bank. It's very nice to be here for the 5th annual conference of the Ggkp. We were happy to host last year's conference in Jeju Island in South Korea, focused on social inclusion. And the subject of sustainable infrastructure is by no means any less important, an issue of critical importance around the world. So the brief history of the Ggkp is quite important to the Global Green Growth Institute as well. We were established as an intergovernmental organization around the same time, and we've existed very much in parallel with the Ggkp, working at the same time to help build it up and expand its role and influence in our broad community of promoting green growth and green economy work. In particular, with the importance of ensuring that we generate, share, and communicate knowledge with greater effectiveness to really achieve transformation in the countries where we work around the world. So the Ggkp for the Green Growth Institute, the Global Green Growth Institute, is quite an important initiative. For us, it's really a platform for galvanizing action towards green development for all the countries where we work around the world, and we're very proud to collaborate with our core founding partners, World Bank, OECD, and UN Environment, as well as I think now the number is actually closer to 60 if we haven't reached 60 partners, and we're very excited about expanding our membership even further, particularly in locations in the furthest reaches of the world where some of us work. So we have been quite dedicated to the mission of the Ggkp, and in fact, as I think Kumi just mentioned, GGGI shares a role in supporting the Ggkp Secretariat. We're strong believers in the role that it plays in terms of thought leadership and knowledge sharing. Very, very close to the mission of GGI, but also in terms of our, the practical investments we make in the countries around the world where we work. We have been, I think, seeing over the past year, 2017, particular growth for the platform, which is quite exciting. We have seen record use of the web platform, a great expansion there, a new expert connection service that directly links experts to developing country needs, and a new area of work focused on natural capital. We're also working to strengthen the Secretariat, and we, in fact, now are bringing one team member of the Secretariat, have brought this team member to Seoul. So we in fact, have a truly global Secretariat with people at sort of in every corner of the world. And so in terms of today, right now, I think we see a lot of synergies with the subject matter of sustainable infrastructure in terms of GGI's own mission. We're excited to be here. Promoting NDCs and the Sustainable Development Goals is quite critical, and the work that we do, developing green cities, investing in renewable energy, sustainable transport, sustainable wastewater and water systems, and even promoting sustainable landscapes. And we're excited to share innovative ideas and solutions together with you this week, and look forward to hearing a lot of these fantastic papers, including a GGI presentation as well. But we're quite excited about the knowledge exchange that's about to happen. So let me then turn it back to Marianne. Thanks again, and we'll look forward to a great conference this week.
Thank you, Orestes. And now we turn to UNEP. Fulai, please.
Thank you, Marianne. On behalf of UN Environment Program, I would like to thank the World Bank for hosting this annual conference. I see Ggkp as a vehicle that carries now between 50 to 60 passengers, partners. And also, what's more, the vehicle carries more than 2,000 knowledge products. I think since Marianne came up with the idea a number of years ago of having this platform, it has really grown into the largest carrier, if you will, for green growth knowledge. So it's something that we all should congratulate ourselves for. At UN Environment, we are committed to working with all the passengers on this vehicle, all the partners on this vehicle, to generate and apply green growth knowledge of relevance to our rapidly changing times. And one particular focal area for us at the moment, at this very moment, is pollution. In about a week's time, UN Environment Assembly will take place in Nairobi. The theme of the assembly is a planet with zero pollution, or something to that effect. And it would be very important for us to give direction to the development of infrastructure in such a way that contributes to reduce the pollution. Another major area of work for UN Environment, at least in the coming years, is the engagement with the One Belt, One Road initiative. To me, it is the elephant in the room when we discuss. That's my timer, sorry. I time myself for 2 minutes. I have just the last word. I'm very diligent. We are establishing an international coalition for green development on the Belt and Road, and we very much look forward to working with all of you in engaging with this initiative, which has tremendous implications for climate, for biodiversity, for land use. Finally, let me wish this conference a great success. Thank you.